I have read many plays, gone as far as to even act in a few. I am by no means, though, on the level of an actual playwright or professional theatrical critic. So with my mild experience, I was not expecting anything on the level of A Raisin in the Sun or Sunday in the Park with George. J.K. Rowling is not going to write the next Death of a Salesman. It's just not who she is as an author. I assumed Cursed Child would be mildly charming, whimsical, possibly, dare I say, fun. Instead, I feel like I read the literary equivalent of getting a concussion. So that was my Goodreads review of Cursed Child, but I do want to preface this video by saying I am not a J.K. Rowling hater. She gives a ton of money to charity, is someone who seems very genuine in the causes she works for, and while her fake hindsight wokeness things can be annoying at times, I think it comes from a legitimately good place. She's trying to let everyone feel like they can become connected to Harry Potter. Some of the things have been a bit weird, but we're not going to get into those here. And I am also someone who defends Harry Potter as great low fantasy. It is some of the best low fantasy we have ever seen from that subgenre. So I had hope for Cursed Child, not very high because people told me to set the bar low, and so I did. But Cursed Child itself is unexcusably bad, and let's go ahead and get into why. There are highlights here. A few, only a few, but they're here. Cursed Child has emotional moments that really do resonate with the reader. The problem is most of them either completely ignore the character we have had built to us so far in the series, or are so reliant on the previous series that they feel cheap and unearned within the text itself. And that is where my heaviest criticisms of Cursed Child come in. It is remarkably poorly written and reliant on the previous series. And it's okay for a new addition to a series to be reliant on the previous books, as long as it has some kind of self-contained plot and story that it builds off of from there. But this fails to do that entirely. Everything is dependent on diving back into what has already happened to a crippling degree. And this is accomplished through J.K. Rowling introducing the most annoying plot MacGuffin she ever dealt with, and something that breaks the rules of her own universe and makes you question everything that's happened: time turners. If you are a fantasy author, unless you have a ton of experience and are willing to spend a lot of time going over the ramifications and installing rules to time travel, do not introduce time travel to your story, because anyone who's willing to take any critical thought to it can just break and bull rush through your plot that's going to be dependent on that time travel, and it'll just really make anyone who's going to be examining the text in a critical way not enjoy it, because it's just a problem. And so yes, the plot of Cursed Child fails on almost every account for me. It has few emotional moments that pay off, but again, it feels unearned because the earned emotion you're feeling doesn't come from what you're physically reading now. Add on top of that the reintroduction of a device I don't think anyone enjoyed, and even the basic premise that is presented to us by the protagonist at the beginning is flimsy, and you just immediately start asking questions. Well, if you're going to go back to here, why don't you go all the way back to there? In fact, why don't you go all the way back to there and then solve all the problems? That's basically the issue that time turners introduce, and it's tried to be addressed by entering some consequences here, but it doesn't pay off hardly at all. But let's move off from that critical failure to the next, and that would be a critical failure of character. We are following new protagonists here, the son of Malfoy and the son of Harry and Ginny. And first of all, the names. Can we just throwing in past character names into this character name? I get the sentiment of trying to be like, oh, these are important people for the father, but if you present Albus Severus Potter to someone, that's such a bad name. It's horrible. Like, I feel like Ginny would be like, no, pick one, not both. Might be one of the worst names I have come across in all of fantasy. It is, I get what he's trying to do, like, oh, name it after these two incredibly important people. But it doesn't feel earned. It just feels like the author going, look, these people meant a lot, and you're going to feel emotions because he named his kid after these two people, even though it sounds like the worst name ever. And this doesn't even address the fact that, well, yes, Snape is one of J.K. Rowling's best character and great overall. He was still a massive ass to Harry. And I don't feel like Harry would be like, I'm going to name my kid after him. Like, it just doesn't feel right. Especially Albus Severus. That's... But this story is essentially Harry Potter's kid and Draco Malfoy's kid teaming up to try and go and solve problems through time travel. And it's so bad. Harry Potter is completely fundamentally misunderstood as a character here, and this really confused me. How could J.K. Rowling not understand Harry Potter to a point where she writes a version of Harry within Cursed Child that makes absolutely no sense the last time we left off with him? And after looking into it, it's because J.K. Rowling didn't really write this that much. There was another secondary author who, if you look under his Goodreads, the books that are attributed to him, they're not great or very well recognized. Who is this guy, and why is he writing Harry Potter? So I think everyone, after reading the Harry Potter books, would believe Harry would be a good dad, someone who's understanding to his kid going through hard times, someone who's willing to work with them, because Harry went through some really hard times and always kept a level, even head, and it would be strange for him to now just have a complete lack of empathy or any kind of connection with his child while his child's going through something similar. But no, Harry just like fundamentally drops the ball as a parent to the point where he tells his son he wishes he wasn't his son at times. Really? You suck, Harry. It's now canonical that Harry Potter is a piece of shit father. So outside of just removing the characters from just who they are as established to just serve flimsy drama within the story here, we also have just very poorly written characterization throughout everything. Like, there's a brief disagreement between Ron and Draco towards the beginning here, and the overreactions people have are comical. Like, really, it seems to be a joke. My first thought was like, oh, they must have been magically drugged to be acting like such annoying tool bags. No. Not at all. They're just acting this way. I'm talking about within one page, there's an instance of twice people holding each other back because they want to go fight someone because they like leveled a mild insult that was also just like kind of a true statement possibly, or like a way things certainly could have been perceived. So the reaction of Ron being like, ah! It's just... what the hell, man? That makes me actually go, no, Ron's the tool. He's escalating things to violence when someone just makes a kind of crappy comment. And if you're one of these people that does that, it just shows you're a really insecure person. And then there's the final elephant to address in the room here. It's not translated to being a novel. It's a script for a play, and that's how it's released. And I've read a lot of plays, as I previously mentioned at the beginning of this video. I considered even being a theater major in college for a minute. I took a lot of theater classes. I've also had a mild obsession my whole life. I've read more plays than I care to remember, and I've been in a couple. So I'm used to reading scripts, but there's a reason we do not release every book as if it were a script, which is objectively easier to write than a huge, fat, thick novel. And that's because they're a lot less pleasant to read, like by a ton. So I'm not going to make the accusation that it was pure laziness, that they didn't actually take the time to translate it into a book that would be more enjoyable to read, but I sure wish they did. As a script, comparing it to other plays I have read, it's the worst. Granted, I'm not really out there reading experimental, like, not successful plays. I've only ever really read, like, B to A-list plays. But let's make the comparison of, like, let's say we have a Tennessee Williams play. It's like a gold bar, absolutely phenomenal. If that's a gold bar, Cursed Child is a gigantic cow patty in the field next door. I found it insulting to read, almost on like an intelligence to the reader aspect. Like, there were things that were just so ham-fisted and shoved down your throat. I was like, is this meant for a toddler? Like, Harry Potter grew up with its audience, and theater is a inherently more mature medium. So this play should be more mature, follow more adult themes. None of that turned out to be true. It was dumbed down. It was definitely just full of fan service moments, especially for like heavy, intense emotional things. I've never seen like dark emotional moments try to be pulled from fan service before, but boy was that attempted here. I do not believe J.K. Rowling wrote the majority of this. I don't, because J.K. Rowling has proved herself to be a very competent author when it comes to writing a neat, whimsical story. This was none of that. I believe in my heart, no matter what they said publicly, whoever this B-tier guy is they grabbed is the author of Cursed Child. For my final ranking of Cursed Child out of 10, I'm going to officially say it's the first book I regret reading entirely on my channel. Unlike Sword of Truth, where I got to have fun and explain like a lot of things you shouldn't do and take some shots at an author that really deserved it, all I am left with here is being incredibly dissatisfied and disappointed. It was not worth my time, and it will not be worth yours. There will be no Amazon affiliate link to buy it because it's not worth me recommending to anybody. So that's a bummer note to end the video on, but it's how I honestly feel. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. And have a good one, y'all. Peace. And of course, I'd like to record a special shout out to my latest high tier Patreons. My Wallet, which is a great name. I find that very funny. Allison Perez, which by the way, your name, like I swear I've heard it before. So I had to like look through to see if you were someone I knew. No, just a very familiar sounding name. And then finally, another great name, Chapters We Love. Ooh, I enjoy that one. Thank you guys so much for the support. Have a good one.